So we have the star of that last video here with us. The brother John, John MacInnis, is my patient, has come here, and we're going to hear some words from him. He had his surgery by me, and then his brother had surgery a few months later. So John, come on up, and we'll have a chat for a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a seat. Well, John, thank you so much for coming all this way to speak with us and to let everyone here know what it's like as a patient. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm 70 years old. Been in the construction business all my life. I'm a graduate civil engineer, and I feel very privileged to be here today.
Me too. Thank you.
I'm very touched after watching all that surgery that we have such a good man at our beck and call.
So what kind of things, just to give us a background about you, what kind of things do you do? What's sort of your background? How do you spend your time these days?
I've retired from the construction business 10 years ago, and I've taken up a few hobbies and volunteer activities. And one of them is I'm involved in the forest business in Michigan. And as part of the forestry activity, I took a course at the Michigan State Extension course at an extension farm in Novi, in my home. And part of that, I got involved in learning about forestry, and at the end of it, we did a volunteer project, and I took up a project called maple syrup, making maple syrup.
Yes, I had never met a professional maple syrup maker in my life, and John is the first one. So so what do you do? Tell us a little bit more about the maple syrup making, how you got into that, and what you do now.
Well, it was a byproduct of taking this course, and at the end of it, you're expected to do a volunteer activity, and my project was to start the maple syrup project at Tollgate Farm in Novi. And so every year for the past 15 years, we've been making maple syrup.
And I've tasted it. John's given me samples. My kids, whenever I get one, they always want pancakes because your syrup's so good. I'm trying to figure out a way to get payment in syrup rather than, if I can figure that out.
Yeah.
But so tell us a little bit about your just overall general health.
I think for my age, I think I'm in good health. I do have a little high blood pressure that has been monitored for a number of years, but I think I'm in good health. I went in to see my internist, Dr. Birch, for my annual physical. And I told him at the time that I felt a little pain in my back. And I had been treated for kidney stones in the past, so I thought it might have been a warning that maybe I was getting a kidney stone. And his immediate reaction to that was, no, it's probably not that, but let's do an x-ray and let's do an ultrasound. And on the ultrasound, they saw something suspicious on the kidney, and they decided that I needed to have a CAT scan. And it was as part of the CAT scan that they saw a malignancy. They saw
a tumor on your kidney, which interestingly, that the way you were diagnosed is how most people now are diagnosed, by accident, looking for something else. At the time that PSA testing for prostate cancer is saying don't do it, here we are without any test for kidney cancer, and fortunately yours was found. So when you had the CAT scan and you got the call about that, what were you thinking at that point?
Well, when I heard the ugly word malignancy, it scared the blazes out of me. And I had a meeting the next day involved with my forestry activity, and it was going to be about 100 miles away. And I told the doctor, I said, I have this meeting tomorrow. And he says, well, call me Monday. This was Thursday, I think. And I hung up the phone, and I got thinking, oh, my God, cancer. And I said, I better get on top of this. And so I called the people at the Forestry Association. I said, I can't come to this meeting. I got to get on top of this problem. I called my doctor back and asked for an interview, and he agreed to see me the next day. And my wife and I went in to see him, and we're scared, So he told us to calm down. He says, this is an operable procedure, and it's relatively small, and it's probably not life-threatening. But, and he said that we have a doctor within our organization who does this kind of surgery, a stranger to me, Dr. Rogers. And but I hear he's the only one who does this, and I'm thinking, oh man, I'll have to wait 2 years to get into his surgery. But at the same time, I called up a friend of mine who happens to be a urological surgeon, a fellow that I grew up with. And I told him, I'd send him a copy of my CAT scan, and I said, what do you think? He said the same thing. This is a very operable procedure. And we gave him the name, this person, Dr. Rogers. He says, Dr. Rogers is very good. If he does the procedure, you're in good hands.
Well, that was nice of him to say. So at that point then, you came to see me. Thankfully, I'm glad I was able to, be a part of your care. How did your visit go when you met with me? What kind of things do you remember us talking about?
Yeah, my urgency was to get on top of this problem as quick as possible, and I was thrilled that I was able to get in to see you in about a week. And you immediately gave me an air of confidence and you showed me a picture of this thing on your computer screen. That's the first time I had seen it, and being an engineer, I said, "Oh my goodness, how do you handle this kind of thing?" And you gave me an immediate confidence that this was a routine procedure, and I really felt very, very good being in your care.
So then, after we went over the options, you chose the Da Vinci partial nephrectomy. What do you remember about the day of surgery? How did that go for you?
Well, they gave us a whole procedure to do the day before, and so we followed it religiously, and I showed up about 7 o'clock in the morning, and they took me into the preparation area, and my daughter and my wife were in the pre-op room, and we met the nice people at the Ford Hospital, and you walked in, and again, you had this strong air of confidence. So I felt very, very confident that things were going to go well.
Unfortunately, they did. We talked about the trifecta outcomes, and you were a trifecta patient, and that everything worked out in terms of the cancer was cured. We saved the kidney. It was all done through the small incisions, no complications. How did your recovery go for you? What do you remember about that?
I woke up in the afternoon in recovery, and my daughter was there, and she looked good, and the nurses were all excellent. They moved me to the room, the recovery. Well, I went out of recovery right to a regular room, and I had to stay quiet that first day, and I didn't understand why. I couldn't drink anything or anything, but they were being careful that if I did need to go back into surgery. Anyways, I did well.
That's called surgeon paranoia.
Anyways, I did well, and the next day you came in to see me, and you even suggested the next day that maybe I could go home that day, 24 hours later.
I remember you looked great.
And I'm married to a nurse, and I says, I know if I have a spike in my temperature that she will panic. So I said, no, let's wait 24 hours. So I went home 2 days later, 2 days after surgery.
Yep. And most people do go home 2 days. It's rare that I'll offer someone, to go home the next day, but you looked so great that it was an option. But so you went home the second day. Now, after you got home, how did things go in terms of getting back into activity? What kind of things how long did it take you to start doing, the maple syrup projects and all that stuff?
That day, I slept pretty much the afternoon of 3 or 4 hours because I had not slept well in the hospital. So I slept well at home that day, and then the next day I took it real easy. On Saturday, I asked my brother-in-law to drive me out to the maple syrup project, and so at about 10 o'clock on Saturday, I'm visiting the farm, and people there were surprised to see me.
So within a week, you're back at it.
I stayed there about an hour, and I felt good, but I was ready to leave.
Sure.
I was tired. So that little bit of effort was a strain.
Unfortunately, when you came back to see me, we had the pathology report showing that the margins were negative, the cancer had been confined, And basically all we're doing now is follow-up appointments. In fact, I think you got the call yesterday that you'll be coming in for your next follow-up visit with a CAT scan.
Something that I wanted to tell you is that when I was home, you had prescribed some pain medication, and I took 1 or 2 of them, and it caused me to be a little nauseous. So I decided not to take any more pain medication, and I really did well.
That's a good point you bring up. You know, when we used to do these surgeries, it was a 1.5 foot long incision. You take a rib out, very painful. Patients were in the hospital anywhere from 5 to 7 days on very strong IV pain medications, sometimes an epidural. To be able to go home and within days be tapering off the pain medications, going to do, you know, maple syrup or whatever it is you want to do, that it just shows how far we've come with this surgery, with the Da Vinci approach.
I have a complaint, though. My belly was distended so much so I couldn't tie my shoes.
You couldn't bend over. Just don't tie your shoes. Slip on. No, I'm just kidding.
I had to bribe my wife to tie my shoes, and I had to bribe some friends to tie my shoes. So for a few days. That's
pretty good. If that's the only complaint I can hear, I'm happy with that. All right. So John, another unique aspect of your story was your brother, Bill, within months being diagnosed, you know, undergoing treatment for a very similar tumor in the kidney by the same approach. He also had a Da Vinci partial nephrectomy. What was it like now as a supportive family member having undergone this procedure, watching Bill go through that?
Well, that's funny because he found out that he was probably going to have surgery on his kidney about the same time as I had mine. And he said to me, well, let's see how it works on you.
You're the guinea pig. Excellent.
Yeah. So I had my surgery in March, and Bill had his in I think June.
Yep. And fortunately, both of you had a similar outcome. You know, we were able to achieve a kidney-sparing, minimally invasive Da Vinci approach. In your case, it was cancer that was cured. In his case, fortunately, it actually ended up being no cancer. It was a benign tumor. There's no way to know that unless you take it out and microscopically look at it. But fortunately, the end result is the same, and the kidneys saved in both of you. So what would you tell someone now if someone called you and said, hey, I've been diagnosed with a tumor, what should I do? What would you tell them about undergoing the Da Vinci partial nephrectomy?
I don't know if you realize it, but I've already been telling people Dr. Rogers is the one to see. And go to Henry Ford Hospital. I was born in Henry Ford Hospital, so I've gone to Henry Ford for just about every major procedure that I've ever had. So I'm a fan of that hospital, and I'm now a huge fan of yours.
I appreciate your support. Thank you.
I would strongly recommend you to anybody I run into who needs this type of surgery.
Thank you. John, I want to say it has truly been a pleasure having you as a patient, being able to be your doctor through all this. And I really want to thank you for also being willing to come to this meeting and share your experience with everyone here. Thank you very much. Thank you. I guess you're done. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. You did great.
Dr. Rogers, I want to thank you for all that you do as a Da Vinci surgeon, your efforts in professional education and training other surgeons, and for being with us here today. I have a small token of our appreciation.
Thank you very much.
And Mr. MacInnis, I really want to thank you for being here today. It's a real pleasure for us at Intuitive Surgical to be able to meet a patient, because often we spend our time with the physicians, and it's really inspirational to be able to meet a patient and hear your story. So thank you very much.
I want to thank you guys. I want to thank Intuitive. This has been an enjoyable process to come down here and tell this story, so thank you.
Thank you very much.
You come out this way.
Now, if you can proceed to your respective